We're giving folks a second to trickle in. But hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I decided this is the last week I'm going to say that to people because I feel like we get it so much. Hi, everyone. For those of you just joining, we're just letting folks, um, giving folks a minute to join and get settled. We'll get started in just a second.
Sarah, your cat's adorable.
Thanks. She's been very into attending all of my meetings today. And yesterday, she climbed up my back while I was trying to talk, and I had to be like, "I'm sorry, I need a minute. There's cat claws in my back." So hopefully we don't repeat that today.
And our pets are having to get used to us being back at work, right? Good to see you all. Let's give it just a few more seconds and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead. It's a few minutes after, and folks might still trickle in. Happy New Year, everyone. So good to see you. I apologize for being off camera, but I'm starting my new year by traveling to Pittsburgh for work things, and of course, timing never quite works out on travel days in the way that you think it's going to. But I am here, really excited to hear from you all. Before I kick it over to Holly, I'm wondering if anyone wants to give us updates. I think of several applications may have closed since the last time we've been together. Anyone want to give us updates on numbers or any other um, items of note you want to share with the group before we get into talking about updates and evaluation at the regional level?
I don't have any new numbers, but so our application had closed before the last meeting that we had, so we talked about that. But we did make our selection, which was really exciting, and contacted everybody and started asking for the proper documentation. And today we made our last phone calls to gather those little stragglers over the holidays that didn't send their documentation to us. So we're hopeful in a day or so we'll have all of that to Holly and my registry. Exciting.
Great, congratulations, Carla. That's exciting news. Anyone else want to share anything?
Hi, I can share Region 4. Our application closed and we have made our selections and we are proceeding to let people know this week.
And Tashana and I are in Region 8, and our application closed. We notified everyone, and like Carla, we're trying to get the stragglers to respond with the information. But so I'm down to my last four, Holly, and then hopefully with some extra calls that we're making, we'll be able to submit all of that to my registry on Thursday.
Maria, I had when we made our phone calls today, we had to call a lot of home providers because they don't always check their email because they're so busy. Um, But when I was calling some home providers today, they were like, I didn't even know. Like they hadn't even checked their email. It had been like over 2 weeks and they were so excited. It was so great to deliver that news and be able to hear that the excitement in person from them.
I will tell you, we've also notified those that didn't receive it and those that are on our waiting list. And I know Tashana took some calls from folks say, or took some emails back saying, thank you for the email. We understand. We appreciate the opportunity to apply. So folks are still very appreciative for the opportunity to apply.
I can give a quick update for Region 2. We are in kind of a similar timeline as several of you, and we're gathering the stragglers who haven't quite yet filled out the registration materials, which were due yesterday. But we've got almost everyone to respond, and then just reaching out to a couple more. So we should also have our list to my registry hopefully later this week.
This is a lot of exciting progress for folks. Anyone else before I kick it over to Holly? All right. Well, we have open share the whole time, so you can just let us know. Holly, what would you, any updates or things you want to share with the group?
Well, I'm going to say Happy New Year too. Some of you I've been emailing with, but I haven't seen your awesome faces since the new year turned, and I hope that all of you had some time to relax over the break. I know my brain was going constantly thinking about what this month is going to be, and I'm sure that that is absolutely the case with all of you, and just so grateful for all of the work that you're doing. And excited that people are being notified. This is what we've been working really hard for. And I know that it's disappointing also for people who have not gotten the award. I know I just want to say one of my conversations with Sarah and Lindsay before break, we were talking about managing some of those frustrated phone calls. So if you need any support in, having conversations with people who are disappointed, we're happy to talk with you. I know the ECI CTA team is also available if you want to practice some of those conversations. And of course, we are always here, that if things get elevated, I am available. And of course, so is Lisa. We are a team, all of you. We will not leave you out there hanging if people are frustrated. So that's the unfortunate part, right? We don't have enough money for everyone. So while we're going to have lots of highs, we're also going to have some disappointments too. So not to start us out on a negative note, but thank you all. Super excited to get the rest of your information to my registry. I know Maria just mentioned she and I were in contact yesterday. Her date changed ever so slightly of when their list is going to my registry. If any of the rest of you have changes and when you're anticipating those lists going to my registry, if you could just let me know that. That would be great. I have a spreadsheet going with their team, and I want to be able to update it so they know when to be expecting your lists. I suspect that I will hear from them if they don't get lists from you, but just want to stay on top of this with them so that they can continue to move pretty quickly through the process and communicate back with you of any issues that they might find or questions that they might have about people who are on your lists. I also wanted to take a moment to just take any questions. I know we sent out instructions and our lessons learned based on our first run of the lists. Does anyone have any questions about the registry piece or any challenges you're having with getting people to update their information that you know of? Okay. Well, let me know. We will work with you to figure all of those pieces out. Shanae.
Hi, how are you? Happy New Year to everyone and to you. We've already been communicating to you today. And our date has changed to the 12th, Monday, the 12th. Just so that you know, we needed to, we want to communicate. We're just really worried about that part-time, full-time ratio, and so that we don't end up over committing. And so we just needed to slow this week down a little bit so that we could get folks. But our question around, and Barbara, are you there? Barbara, maybe you can ask the question that she was standing her ground on. And I think it's related to how does my registry know that someone has not updated their information? Is that a timestamp that they're looking at? I'm just trying to, we were just
Yeah, they're
trying to.
actually looking at whether or not certain fields are filled in. So
Oh,
in
okay. So whether or
particular,
not they're,
have they, completed their information? If things are not, if their employer isn't indicated, if their wages aren't in there, things like that. Sarah, you got a list back from them. There were a lot of
Yeah.
various things.
Yeah, they were just looking for completion more than like, has it been updated in like the last 3 months or something like that. So we are
okay.
sending back our our list of folks who needed to do updates tomorrow. Um, and then they'll be rerunning those folks to make sure those updates were in fact made. And then, well, at some point we'll hear back again and hopefully get to tell those people huzzah, like, and then move forward with stipend payments. But yeah, they're
Oh,
just looking for
that's helpful.
completion.
That's
Yes, that's
helpful. We were just wondering that. And I don't know if you were doing updates. Is that what you were doing for regions? I just want to say that we received requests for 2,880. I just want you to know.
Uh,
So that's why we're being super careful because we just
yeah.
don't want everybody mad at us. You know what I mean? We are, I think that was 259 licensed childcare entities. And so that's a great showing. It means our outreach was really great and our partners were really great. But we certainly have been thinking hard and long and working on how we waitlist everyone else. And that's that they get to join a waitlist is how we're framing it.
Yeah.
And if other money comes available. So I just wanted to say that because that's was huge. We were putting bets in, about where the number would land, and we were absolutely shocked that many folks asked for that many slots. So with the selection committee, which met twice, we ended up kind of giving folks slots, but like at a 30% level, just to
Mhm.
spread the love around. So we have about 80 entities, licensed childcare entities. So we are going to announce tomorrow and get an acceptance back from them that clarifies the first steps, the full time and part-time piece, so that we just don't over allocate. A little tricky. Oh, Nicole's on
Wow.
here. Nicole's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great job on that outreach. And wow, does that make it challenging. Lots of disappointed people. I'm glad you brought that up. I have on my list to be talking with all of you when we meet over the next 2 weeks for our one-on-ones. I just wanted to mention one of the things that my leap is going to be interested in getting from you once all of this gets moving is the numbers that we had to turn down, like how many applications we did get. That is a piece of the data that we're going to want to be keeping in the thinking of when we're talking with legislators, being able to, have that as part of the picture of how many people applied for just from this beginning stage that we weren't able to serve with the funds that we have. So I know you all have that data. I know you're focused on all the other things so we can keep things moving this month. I'm positive no one's discarding applications that came in, but just as a heads up, we'll be wanting that information at some point from you.
This is Jordan. I realize no one else from Region 5 is on right now. If it's not too late, I can give a quick update on our application process if that would be okay.
Of
Great.
course.
We have made our selections. Notifications are going out on Thursday. We've had 54 programs get accepted. A little over half are home-based programs, which we're really thrilled with. And we've made, which I will put in, I can show to folks at Cool Kids if you can join. We've made a dashboard that shows us the amount of programs who applied against all of our different rubric categories. So we can see of the 200 plus programs that applied, how many reported operating out of 6 to 6, how many operated on the weekends. And so we were just reflecting on how much information we now know about accessible licensed childcare that we didn't have before. So it was really cool.
That's great. Awesome. Can't wait to take a look at it. Thanks, Jordan. Okay, just a couple of other things I wanted to let you know. AIR is pretty much done with the evaluation. The link will be available, I'm hoping, in the next day or two. I tested the link. It is able to be accessed through a phone as well. So we're just doing the quick, make sure everything's ready to go. The evaluation or the survey is also being translated right now, so in Spanish and Arabic. So thank you for quick response on that. And I know that I think it was Region 6 and 9 who said maybe need for Kiswa or for Swahili. Keep us posted on that. If we need that, we will work to get that done. Or maybe it was Region 10, one of our groups over in the southeast part of the state. So we are going to be, hopefully it will be relatively easy for all of you to just slip the links in with communications that you are sending to your educators and your businesses, because there's a survey for both of them. And we want to hit that sweet spot of between being notified and first payment. So this first one, we want to be asking people questions before they start receiving the money. So I'm leaning in on AIR to get that for all of you. And I think I'll be able to send it to you tomorrow or Thursday, if not tomorrow. So we'll be ready to go. And also our spreadsheet that I keep talking about to collect data about your participants, which is going to be our Excel spreadsheet that we have you fill out monthly. We'll have you populate that the first month. And then all you'll really need to do is changes. So it'll push people from one month to the next. And the only changes you'll need to make are deletions and additions. So hopefully it won't be a lot, and it will auto calculate for all of us our ebb and flow of people. So that we can be working on at a state level, how have we been doing with people who have stayed employed from the beginning, how many dropped out, etc. So in full transparency, we are working on what is the most secure way to be collecting this data from all of you. And at the same time, that's accessible to all of us who are not state employees. So we've been trying to figure out how to do this on SharePoint because there is concern about Google. But some of us, namely me, is having a hard time getting myself into the SharePoint. So I am working with the IT department at MyLeap to try to figure out, is this going to work? And I'm trying to be the guinea pig before trying to give it to all of you to get into, so that we're not dealing with frustration of sending things. So stay tuned, it's coming, and hopefully we'll figure out a very nice and seamless way to do this so no one's frustrated with technology, but at the same time that we're being really cautious about protecting the information about all of our participants. Okay. And I think that's it. SOEs, if any of you submitted SOEs for November, those checks went out over the break Hopefully, you should have received your money. If you did not, please reach out to me. I know a couple of SOEs have come in already to be paid right now for work in December. Please feel free to send those in. We're ready, and I think all of you have submitted your payment information so that Jared can do direct deposit to all of you. In particular, those of you who will need money for startup, we want to be absolutely sure that we are ready to roll, and that money will flow to you very quickly once we know exactly how many people you have, and we'll get you that money. So we'll be talking with all of you individually, but please reach out if anything's going on. Our team is here to help. That's all I have, but
Thank you, Holly. Any more questions for Holly or any things folks need clarification on?
okay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. So if something comes up.
Great. Thank you so much, Holly. A lot of good media updates for all the work that's going on. So, as you all may or may not remember from last month, it feels last year, I guess we can say, we talked about the evaluation, and that spurred some questions around how folks were approaching collecting data and evaluating for either continuous quality improvement or other kind of assessment of your own regional initiatives. So Region 5 had said that they had a survey. So Jordan graciously joined us today to share information on that. But this is also an opportunity for folks to share anything else you're doing, ask any questions of each other, tell us any needs that you have to make this work. So I'll hand it over to you, Jordan, if you're ready. And then after you present, folks, feel free to ask questions, but we'll just have a discussion in general. If we have other needs that folks have, we certainly can talk about those as well after the fact. But we wanted to start here the new year with talking about data collection and evaluating your local efforts. So, Jordan, with that, I will pass it to you. Oh, and you're on mute.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. It's nice to see you all again. I think that Sarah sent out the survey with her email. I can put it up on my screen if that is helpful for folks. Oh, here we go. There's a copy right here from Lindsay. So the survey is made up of two parts. We initially had a more robust evaluation plan in place, which was going to include engagement directly with program level staff as well, who were going to be doing the administration of the stipends. As it became clear that we weren't at this point able to confirm that we would be able to offer them any compensation for that additional labor, we pulled back from doing additional evaluation with folks at the administrative level and decided that we wanted to focus on evaluating stipend recipients' experiences because they were actually receiving more money from participation in the initiative. So the tool that we developed pulled from two separate things. The monthly questions, which are up here, are verbatim from a validated tool called the Copenhagen Burnout Inventory. And so one of the things that we knew was really true in our region is that people want to work in this field and they're not able to do so for a variety of reasons. And we know that burnout is one of the reasons that people leave. And so we were curious to see if we see a change in responses over time. And so this would be administered monthly. And there's a couple categories. So there's personal burnout, there's work-related burnout questions, and then there's client-related burnout questions. To be clear, what we put in here is we are not talking about burnout related to engagement with families, but with children. So specifically when you are in your role in the child care, engaging with children, when we say client, that is what we mean. Our goal is to be able to send this survey to folks in their preferred method. So if they would like it to get texted to them once a month, then we will get it texted to them. If they want it to get it emailed, they can. If we have folks who maybe have some needs where they need to have it read out loud to them, we could provide that as well. But our goal is to engage with the folks who are participating as stipend recipients to say, this is part of what we want to learn about the value of what we're offering. And part of that is to help us understand how it may or may not be impacting you and your experience at work. The quarterly questions are going to be asked quarterly. And these are questions that came from the Stanford Rapid Child Care Question Bank. These questions got pulled out in consultation with Dr. Erin Watson from Weaving Change, trying to get as close as possible to what we felt like we could ask about that were real life experiences that people were having, but were not necessarily too invasive, but do show us over time what folks may be experiencing. We will be taking the results from these surveys and using them during listening sessions that we'll be hosting with stipend recipients to be able to learn more from them about what their experience is. We're lucky enough to be able to partner with our East Central Michigan Child Care Coalition to be able to help those folks get connected to additional resources if they would like them. And so I'm happy to answer any more specific questions, but that's kind of the short rundown of the tool, where the questions came from, and what we're looking to do with the information. So what else might I be able to answer for folks that could be helpful?
Wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the focus groups and when you see those happening. I'm assuming those are also a place to kind of unpack, if I get the gist of what you're learning from the survey questions, and also explore additional topics.
Yeah, I think we want to use them in a couple different ways. And so one of the things we're making very clear to folks is that completion of these surveys or participation in these focus groups is completely optional. It is in no way tied to your stipend, receiving your stipend. That is the evaluation from AIR. We're asking these questions and asking to engage them because we want to see systemic change at our regional level. And we know that they are going to have expertise about their lived experience that we will never know unless we ask them. And part of what we know from human-centered design is the importance of really understanding somebody very deeply from where they're coming from to understand what is driving their behavior and how those are interacting with systems that they're in and causing these outcomes. And so our focus groups are opportunities, and listening sessions are opportunities to get groups of people together in a small, more intimate way. It's going to be Zoom, so we'll be intimate rectangles together, but we've all been through COVID. We can have virtual intimacy and really be able to say to them, tell me about the best day you've ever had in your job. What makes you keep coming back? What are the things that when you wake up in the morning, you're like, if this happens one more time, I can't do this anymore. Because when we understand these kind of motivations, where they're coming from, it helps us to also make sure and check that our systems change strategies with our coalition are in alignment with the reality of what people are experiencing in our region. Because we are lucky to have a relatively engaged region, and we have communities that are trying to make change at the city and the township level. And part of what we need to do is really help them understand what they need to do that. And we have also just found when people can see you, they are more likely to say, man, I'm really struggling with this thing. And then someone else is able to say, I really struggled with that too. This is what we tried. Because the people who are doing the work, the most important work of taking fair care of these kids, actually have way better ideas for each other than I do. So I think we're hoping both to be able to build those connections, unpack what we found out in the survey. We also had some additional questions we wanted to be able to ask in a survey that we couldn't. And so we're hoping to leverage some polls in Zoom where it's a little bit faster for folks. You're already here, we're already chatting. Can we get a little bit more of this information? So say for our programs that operate from 6 to 6, hey, if your program operates outside of 6 to 6, what time do you have to get there? Right? Because that's some added context. When my program at this home I work at opens at 5, I actually might be there at 4:30 because I'm helping her get everything ready for the kids to be able to come in. So that's what we're working on. We're more than happy to share whatever guiding questions we end up with. I would say the last thing is selfishly, we'd really like to recruit some more representation to our regional coalition of people who work in childcare. And so being able to show folks who are interested in this pilot who would like to be more engaged in the childcare system a way that they could be, we're hoping to build rapport that way as well.
Jordan, I can't remember, are you providing stipends directly to the workers themselves or to the business owner?
Yeah, we give the funds to the business owner to distribute. And so well, I guess we're going to find out. Most of our businesses will only have some of their staff stipend, right? So we will give the funds to the business owner and they distribute those stipends to the staff who are eligible to receive them.
So then you will utilize their direct emails to survey them, or will you have the business owner help with the dissemination of the surveys?
I think that's a really great question. I think our hope will be that we're able to contact them directly. I think we would be wanting to partner very heavily with MMDC to say, this is what we'd like to offer. Will you help us be able to get it out in this way? We may have to do it through their employers. I think, Maria, it's a good point. We're going to have to see what people are comfortable with. And they kind of have to go from there.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Are you offering any incentive for completing the survey or participating in the focus group?
One of the TA questions that I didn't send in yet is if we can, as we have before, used our East Central Michigan child care engagement budget to stipend participation in listening sessions that are informing the work of the coalition. I think we'll find out what the answer is to that. If we get told it needs to be open to the public, I think we'll just get creative about what we need to do. We would like to stipend people for their time. We have had no issue before in MI Registry approving credit for attending those sessions as professional development. So we have been able to give them professional development credit, which has been very helpful for folks and has led to some repeat attendees at our listening sessions, which has been nice for us in terms of continuity of how has their story evolved over time? Are the same things happening? It's happening.
Thank you. Very helpful.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have questions?
I guess I have one question. So it looks like you've got multiple vantage points from around burnout. And I'm just wondering what other domains did you see out there? Even is Stanford's piece, is that the one that you took some of the questions from? That might be something to take a look at as well.
I will find the link, Shanae. Aaron from Weaving Change put all of the questions from Stanford's bank that I fed to her
that's
into
right.
one big spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. So I would definitely try to find that. I'll remind her if I can't find it, but that was, there are a lot of very domain specific inquiries about like stability for family, what economic stability looks like. And it's, so that was where we pulled from. And I think our lens really was, what could we ask that will feel meaningful to them and will also represent a recognition on our part of like, there's no way you aren't experiencing this, and we need to start being able to document this in the community of childcare, that like burnout, like what happens in the medical field and happens in elder care field, is one of those things that if we can resolve issues up front, the longevity of people in their positions, and then the longevity of stability within the system of care children are experiences, hopefully increases. So that's where we came from. And like I said at the beginning, our first evaluation was, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and this. And then we had to get more realistic the size of what we're doing now. We are hoping to take some of what we were looking for to the coalition to say, we think the answers to these questions might inform our work here.
Yeah.
How might we
smart.
integrate them into what we're doing here instead?
Mhm. No, and thanks for reminding me that Aaron did send that. I remember seeing it. And we've done that here in Kent County. So we've got multiple iterations of it. So it'll just be interested to kind of take a look at that. I see Nicole on this call. So, well, we got opportunities here. Thanks for leading the charge.
Great. Thanks, Sarah, for sharing that in the chat. Is there anyone else who wants to share something they're really excited about that they're doing, or just general questions around data collection and local evaluation?
I just think that we ended up with, and Nicole helped me out here, that we ended up learning some interesting things as we collected data. Maybe you want to highlight a couple of those, Nicole, in particular the CDC one and any others that seem to jump out in the data that I thought was already kind of interesting to know.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I think one thing we're really surprised about, and I don't have the summary right off the top of my head, Shanae, so you may need to remind me, but I think it was like 92% of our applicants accepted CDC. And we were really surprised by that, very surprised. And so that was a pleasant surprise to see that we were reaching organizations, reaching more vulnerable children. So that was a piece. Trying to think of any other. Are there any other, Shanae, that are standing out to you that?
I think the other one is that, Nicole kind of set it up so that they would also tell us, that, are you in CDC, and then how many children are you actually have in care?
Yeah.
And I think that was also an interesting picture to see the difference between who actually had someone in care and versus just being on CDC, that they could accept the children. So I thought, given these times, this is something that we certainly want to make sure we keep an eye on, and we'll begin to inform and impact our work, I think. So we're trying to be on it in that regard as well. And low enrollment, that would be the other one. You just mentioned that in our last meeting today.
Yeah, we did a flag for license capacity versus current enrollment so that we could see if there was a threshold that people were meeting, not necessarily formal threshold, but just to kind of flag that and look at what that data, what those data are telling us. And then a few other areas, I think we asked about whether this could expand classroom capacity or expand their capacity to serve more infants and toddlers. And so we're really excited to dive into those data about, what the impact of some of these small investments could be. And so we'll be eager to jump in there once we get all of the logistics taken care of and people in the pipeline. So yeah, lots to sift through for sure.
Yeah, and try to make that tie back to, how does it inform the work of the coalition? Is that, if this is how they're situated, what does that mean for the kind of work that could this wage initiative do what it's set out to do, but also impact the system in other ways? And so that whole infant toddler piece about whether or not they could expand classrooms or expand the number of infant toddlers that they have. We thought would be powerful. I think that we extrapolated from those numbers roughly that we would at least get, I want to say 60 something, 63, 68 additional kind of infant and toddler slots. So someplace to start. And we'll have to analyze the data a little bit more to see, of those who said that they couldn't make that kind of impact. How were they situated? How are they the same or different than these others? So we end up with some profiles, and
I think it speaks a lot to the potential too of continued investment. If there's a potential, all of the people we couldn't serve, the 2,300 slot stipend awards we couldn't give, if we could fill some of that potential, what could that do for supply building in the infant toddler space? And so I think we're eager to start to put some of those pieces together.
And we just had a meeting with the city of Grand Rapids that we will be able to use some of the dollars that we were getting from them to actually do an expansion fund to kind of help with that. So those are just municipal dollars that were available, and they really actually were pretty excited about that idea.
That's great. Other questions, needs, kind of things that would help you in this area? Thinking about data collection, evaluation, other things you want to share, questions you want to pose to the whole group. I'm just going to open it up. I don't want to move off this topic before we make sure folks have what they need. We can always come back to this, but let's just open it up to general questions. You may have some about evaluation. There may be other things you're coming up against that you want to hear how your peers are dealing with them, or other resources that would be helpful to you. I'm just going to open it up to anyone who wants to unmute or share a question in the chat or a thought in the chat.
So I have a feeling that this particular instance might become a one-on-one Region 3 and Holly conversation. But over the holidays, I found out, was informed, we might end up having a stipend recipient, and we're distributing directly to educators for Region 3. And we might end up with an educator who has been awarded the stipend. All of their My Registry stuff is up to date. So like they're essentially good to go from our perspective, who is on the cusp of a labor dispute, it would seem. And I don't know, I certainly did not. I don't know that anybody else foresaw the possibility of what that looks like when one of the requirements is ongoing employment with a child care provider. Um, if your employment with that provider is in dispute, like, not necessarily clear cut, you're working there or you're not, but if you've been fired for retribution, or the correct labor term for that, um, if else has come up against that, or if anyone has any thoughts on how we might navigate that, I think Holly will probably become a conversation more in depth with us as this progresses, whether or not, that individual is continuing to receive stipend payments if their employment is in dispute with their employer.
I would ask the question, who has to verify employment? And if they can't get that verification, then that's part of your due diligence, I think.
Yeah, so our first line is employment verification with the employer. And if the employer does not verify, We do provide a backup option for the employee to be able to do self-verification, but we're relying on pay stubs there. So
Mhm.
if your labor is in dispute and you're not being scheduled for hours that, maybe you're supposed to be scheduled for whatever, you may not have the pay stub. Um, and the latest update from this person was that they had been showing up for their regularly scheduled hours, but being ignored, and those hours weren't being paid out on their paycheck. So, it's like a whole deep can of worms that they may well still be working there, but they don't have a way to verify, and their employer is not communicating at all at that
And
point.
that's your test. That's your test. I'd get out of it. That's what I would do. That I would move on.
Yeah.
You got a whole bunch of regions that you've got to take care of, and you don't want to get bogged down. So that's what I would do with that. You got to have your verifications. If you don't have your verifications for you covering your own work, right, then you don't have verification. It seems simple. But I asked ChatGPT. We spent a lot of time in there.
I feel like chat's going to tell me that they're not a lawyer and they can't answer my question.
Oh, really? Now you think so? Oh, shoot.
As the wife of a lawyer, ChatGPT unfortunately does not have that level of. There's a new uptick of clients who are like, ChatGPT told me you could get me $1 trillion, so please go ahead and do what it says. Yeah, I would. Sounds like, Sarah, to clarify, like this person's individual labor is in question with their employer, and so I think that probably hard when you're hearing directly from the person as the employee rather than the employer. But it does seem what Shanae said. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, Holly. But if it's contingent upon their employment with their employer, then that it's really sticking to that definition.
And maybe it's in that camp of like, yes, this for you as an individual, this feels like another kick while you're down. And we have rules we have to follow and check boxes we have to check. And so we're sorry if that sucks. We are a neutral party, but this is what we have to do. Yeah. That's kind of what my gut told me, but I don't love the answer as a human.
And waitlist them. That's what we're doing with the 2,000 and something folks that we want to help. Waitlist them. Not at this time.
Yeah, Sarah, we can talk more, but that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I think potentially we could look at pausing until it gets figured out, and if it's a positive outcome, that's great. Otherwise, yeah, I think we have to be very cautious that people are still employed. That sounds like a terrible situation.
It is.
And there are always two sides of the story.
And we were just looking at our data today, and Barbara and Nicole were going back at it, trying to verify, is this really a person? Is this really an entity? And it looked like, which is the reason why partly that you guys want to verify stuff is that we need to make sure that everybody is who they say they are, and we look like we had at least one that looked sketchy. So.
Oh yeah, we had at least one person come back in our My Registry check that had given us a license number and declared themselves a home-based provider, but that license number was closed. They're no longer a provider. And that had been the case for, more than a couple of weeks. So trying to wiggle in there. So there are those folks out there.
Right. And I guess I'm saying all that to say is that we have so much to do here, and it's so important in a short time that at least for our team, we're going to try to go where we can win and really help and build this thing out. We can get bogged down in all of all kinds of things that we got to keep the train moving.
Good reminder, Janae, because I'm like, I don't, especially when it's a one-to-one situation, it's very easy to say, like, I'm just gonna go all in and I'm gonna help you find a new job and I'm gonna figure it out with you. But
I'm that person. Trust me.
yes, yeah, she's speaking from
I'm gonna
experience.
rescue you,
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'm trying to do at least different in 2026. How about that?
Nice.
I didn't do so well in 25, but
It's always this year. I was just going to say, you really both talking made me think about my own experience administering a program and what Jordan said before about capturing people's lived experience is that you're also getting lived experience as an administrator of these programs. So I would encourage you to think about what works for you as like an informal documentation of the lessons you learned along the way because 18 months or even a month from now you may kind of forget some of these scenarios that you're encountering, so even for your own professional practice, and maybe eventually it will lead to something else, but to keep some way, even if that's like you write it in your planner or you keep a running Google Doc that you're remembering what has been sticking out and is important to you and your team as you do this work.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for bringing that issue here, Sarah. Others, um, there's no question or wondering too small or too big for this group, or just even sometimes it's helpful to name to your colleagues an anxiety or a celebration or just a wondering. Anyone else want to share something?
I have a question that's come up a couple times now, and I suspect other regions might encounter this. And this is kind of around the definition again of who qualifies as an educator. And we've had a couple of directors of centers who have kind of asked in various different ways whether they can receive the stipend because in addition to their role as a director, they are also in the room regularly and including kind of meeting the at least the part-time hour per week requirement. And so I'm curious if anyone else has encountered that, and if, because to me this is a lot more like a home-based owner operator who is in that dual role of educator and administrator. But curious about if anyone else has heard that and Holly, what your thoughts are on that kind of wrinkle to the definitions of educator and the requirements around that.
It's interesting. I just got that, Norika, today because she came back and I questioned her because she said she was an assistant teacher and then she said she was the program director. And my question to her was, what is it listed in my registry?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's, Holly, is that what my registry will come back and say? Like, if you're listed as just the program director, that they wouldn't qualify, but if they've listed themselves as an assistant teacher, would that qualify?
Yeah, I think this is a slippery slope we could get into. And this wage initiative is intended for people who are in that their role is either a lead teacher or an assistant teacher, not for the administrator. And I think our squishy zone, I mean, of course, home-based care looks different because they're both. And I think we will give some latitude if someone goes on leave for having a baby or something. If you decide in your region that you want to switch the payment to that person, or if you want to continue to be paying the person who is off, but it can't be a both and. But if they are the director of a center, they don't qualify. And I know it's hard when people are asking, and I think we all have big hearts, right? I'm like Shanae. I have to tell myself not to.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to those center directors, how they are different in that scenario from a home-based provider. The one in particular was saying like she's responsible. She's all day Friday in a classroom and 4 hours every other day of the week. So it's, I guess, yeah, I don't know.
I guess what that makes me think is like, this is going to sound harsh. That's their choice. That doesn't mean she's predominantly the teacher. And I understand there's a lot of reasons why people get scheduled to be in classrooms to cover this. I mean, I think, Holly, it's really challenging because we have a lot of directors that are in classrooms because of staffing shortages.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I mean, it sounds like, so there's the episodic, but then this is actually a scheduled person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, I know, and I'm imagining, Norica, that you all might run into this too. We had folks who, especially like really small centers, that maybe it's a center-based program because it's not in their home, but that the owner operator is like the teacher of record, the only teacher ever scheduled for the infant room. And having to figure out how to navigate that. Because that's where then it became, because it is much more like a home-based program that yes, they're the person running the program, um, and they're with kids, and that's just how the whole model is set up. So yeah.
I think we see a little bit more of that too with the inception of that small cap site, with those under 20. But I also, I guess my wondering is typically when you're a center director, whether you're a center director of a small cap or of a center, you're typically making more than your staff are making, right? And so I would be willing to bet, I mean, when I look at my region of the UP, most of my center directors are making over that $17 an hour rate that we set as well, I think we all set that rate, $17. Um, and and so again, to what others have said, that's a choice that you make. And I think that you as a center director, and I don't know how many of you have been there, but I've been there. We have some extra perks that our staff doesn't have. And I think that, um, you know, I want my staff to have it. I would be wanting my staff to have it.
Okay, that's
Would
helpful.
would it make sense for these instances to be incorporated in the lessons learned section of the evaluation at the state level? Because it seems like as we continue to want to expand access to licensed childcare, these realities aren't going to go away. There are going to be directors who are licensed to a center that are the primary care provider for a group of children for an extended period of time, right? And so part of it for me is how can we best get the details about these so that they're documented as this is a reality in our licensed childcare landscape, likely because of the fact that wages are so low. Right. And so these are an unintended consequences. These folks aren't getting stipend for work that they're doing, but also the fact that they exist in this way may be a consequence of our system. I don't know, but it seems like that these shouldn't just kind of float in the wind and just be in this group together where we're like, it really sucks when you have to give somebody really bad news. Like, it's not fun. But I do think that bad news could hopefully be lead to a greater understanding of the dynamic nature of our child care system. And I know that was very Pollyanna of me. So thank you all for, I'm well rested from vacation, so I'm being positive. So thank you for letting me be, and I'll be quiet.
Oh, I can't believe our time goes so quickly. I'm just looking at time, but definitely agree. We'll do some more thinking on how you all can have tools to maybe quickly document some of these lessons learned or go deeper so that you're feeling like you're sharing them in a way that's, helpful, uh, that you're getting all the information that you need about the situation. So appreciate that. Sorry to just cut us like off cold conversation, but know that we're here and you can email the technical assistance email at any time. I loved what Holly said before. We're here for anything you can think of. Like if you're like, I'm just really nervous to make this phone call and I'd really want to walk it through with you. I know that's like not the number one thing anyone wants to do, but it always does help to do those sort of things. So we are really here for you all and your needs. And Holly, of course, is as well. And so we can triage those questions as well. If you're like, I'm not sure who to send this to, know that we're making sure that the right folks get that on our end. Appreciate getting to see you. Thank you, Jordan, for presenting. Happy 2026, and we'll see you soon. I know we don't have another office hours for a little bit. We've moved to monthly, so we will send out some communication, just making sure that you have what you need. If we need to do anything additionally as you're starting to roll things out to support you all or bring you all together. But we'll be in touch and you be in touch with us. Appreciate it, everyone.